Good morning, my friends. This is the Grim Flayer. Hope you're doing very well today. Hope you're ready to Jund them out. Yet again, we are playing some Jund midrange, some boomer midrange, if you will. And, people like to write Jund off. We shouldn't ever be writing this deck off, in my opinion. Yes, it's relative power or position in the meta will ebb and flow, just like any other deck, but Jund has so many tools that it can be built to be competitive with just about any meta until Fire Design takes the next step, which we hope it never does, right? So, anyway, this is a list brought to us by Alex Cote. Alex is a very generous direct donor as well as a confidant tier Patreon supporter. Thank you so much, Alex. Really do appreciate you, my friend. And we have to shout out Alex's friend. It's another French-Canadian name. I'm going to do my best with this. Gabrielle Marcoux, who Alex has brought into the BGX family. And Gabrielle now plays Catrock, now plays Golgari midrange with Luris. You love to hear that. We love our Jund players and our rockers. Very, very cool. So, let's talk for a minute or two about Alex's list, and then we're going to jump right into a league with it. The land base, relatively stock. To the extent that it's not stock, things worth mentioning. Not everybody plays a 4th Blackcleave Cliffs. We are. And certainly not everybody plays a 5th Shockland, but we are. So 2 each of Tomb and Crypt. This does come at the expense of some utility that could otherwise be had in the form of like a 2nd Ravine, a 2nd Peatland, maybe a cycling Onslaught land, or maybe a 9th Fetch land. But we have a great deal of consistency, and we will hopefully have a lot of painless starts when it matters off of Blackcleave Cliffs. Speaking of respecting our life total and having a lot of things to do against low curve aggressive decks, our 1-drop suite of interaction accomplishes that very well. We have 3 Lightning Bolt, 2 Fatal Push, and 1 Bloodchief's Thirst as far as the removal spells go. I like Bloodchief's Thirst a lot. I like it a little bit better in Rock than I do in Jund. It can sometimes be a bit of an awkward cascade, but I do think it's playable. I am just very high on Fatal Push right now in the current meta, so we'll see how Thirst performs. Hopefully that kicker or the ability to target a Planeswalker can put it over the top for us in a match or two. But I do think the card is fine, and overall we are definitely respecting the aggressive decks because we have a 4-2 split of Inquisition and Thoughtseize, and we have 2 copies of Cling to Dust, enabling us to gain some life, to cantrip, to draw some cards, whatever we need to do with it. It's a great, great card. It's been proven over the past few months as very much a card that will Jund, that will rock, etc. No surprises here in the 2-drop slot with 4 Tarmogoyf and 3 Wrenn and Six, which are totally stuck. 2 Trophy and 1 Decay. We'll jump up briefly here to the 3-drop to mention Kolaghan's Command with that group as well. These represent our flexible removal spells, are kind of catch-alls, and I've said for a while now that Decay is well-positioned. I believe that to still be true. Trophy is also well-positioned, so you almost can't have too many of these effects right now. I like this configuration quite a lot, and I'm also the world's #1 Kroxa respecter, so very happy that we're playing 2 copies of Kroxa. For Liliana the Veil, no shaving on our most iconic card for Alex, and we also have a top end of 3 Bloodbraid Elf, 3 Spyro. Cannot go too far wrong with that. Maybe if the meta was really fast, you could go a little wrong with that, and you couldn't reliably grind him out with Spyro, had to go a little faster with Bloodbraid Elf, but this is a really, really strong configuration. I like it a lot. Nothing to complain about in the sideboard with maybe one exception. I will talk about that at the end, but 2 Plague Man, 2 Brutality, 2 Ashiok, Dream Render, and 2 Boil. These cards are all Jund staples of the current moment. Nothing bad to say about those, and frankly, nothing unusual about including them either. 1 copy of Klothys, God of Destiny, which is nice. We always need a grindy card we always want to have a grindy card to reach for, really. Just in any random mid-range mirror you might run into. You want a card, in my view, if you can afford it, that's like, okay, it's not conditional, it's just like, this is good grindy value that will almost always get you X for 1s when the opponent is on a similar deck to yourself. Klothys fits that bill. She's supplementary life gain against aggressive decks, supplementary graveyard hate against those types of decks, and we also have a full play set of Cleansing Wildfire and 2 copies of Soul Guide Lantern that round out the sideboard. So, what do these 2 cards have in common? Well, At first, nothing. Cleansing Wildfire is an anti-big mana card, and it also is a cantripping sinkhole against decks that cannot fetch a basic land. And it also can fix your own mana under a Blood Moon. Soul Guide Lantern is totally different. It's graveyard hate, but it's kind of worse graveyard hate than Nile Spellbomb. So why are we playing the latter, and what do they have in common? Well, here's what they have in common. They both are great against oops all spells, or as Alex would refer to it, oops all garbage, right? And the reason Wildfire is good is because they don't play any basics, so it's a cantripping sinkhole there. And the reason Soul Guide Lantern is good is because they're an all-in graveyard deck, and also Soul Guide Lantern specifically gets around Leyline of Sanctity, which Nile Spellbomb does not. So I pushed back a little bit against this card, because it is a worse card for a mid-range deck overall than Spellbomb. But Alex mentioned that, and I said, you know what? I think that's as good a reason as any to try this card out in Jund. I don't believe I ever have before. I think the only time I've ever played that is in, like, a prowess deck, right? And as you see here, we're 4 minutes away from the weekly maintenance, so hopefully this league does not take 4 hours to play. I've had some long ones in the past, but I've never had a 4-hour league. Trying not to start having one today. So there you go, my friends. There is our list. Thank you once again to Alex Cote. Shout out once again to his friend Gabrielle. And thank you so much for watching. Thanks to all Patreon supporters. Really do appreciate you guys so much. Without any further ado, let us go Jund them out. Okay, opponent keeping 7 with a companion, so we hate to see that. We're already down a card. I can't help but think that way. But obviously we have a pretty solid hand too. Hopefully turn 1 removal and into turn 2 discard or vice versa lines up really well, which looks like it's against a prowess deck, so I imagine that will be the case. And then from there, we'll see how far we can get with Bloodbraid Elf and some top decks against the Lyris deck. We should be in for a really good interactive game here. And, I was going to say I think Inquisition's the likeliest take, but obviously Bloodbraid Elf is a card. I'm going to play the Blood Crypt. Makes it impossible for them to play a Scourge of the Skyclaves this turn, and we're not holding up Bloodchief's Thirst anyway, right? I guess we could have played a fetch land and fetched on their end step would have accomplished the same thing. OP with a Bomat Courier, so they're on the Bomat version, not the Soulscar Mage version. We draw an Inquisition of Kozilek, which I think is a pretty great draw. I was definitely going to be okay playing a Tarmogoyf here, but let's fire off Inquisition. It's a great time for it. And then I should be happy enough to push, or to thirst the Bomat Courier here. Okay, Cling to Dust. Lightning Bolts. Double Shadow, huh? Kinda wanna just take the... I don't know. The Cling is actually really awkward in some ways. For us... This is a puzzler. I'm almost thinking about just letting them keep their interaction and take away the shadow. I think that's what I'm going to do. There is no clear path otherwise, and in terms of what we want to do ourselves. And having seen that, I'm not sure that I'm supposed to just Bloodchief's Thirst away this Bomat Courier, but I think for the sake of mana efficiency, I'm going to. Already some really interesting decisions here. Opponent just gonna cling, that makes sense. Ooh, we're punished. Okay. Yeah, opponent ripping discard is real bad for us. And we draw land. Dang. Okay. Not good. Not good at all. Here comes a lightning bolt, but who will it target? Yeah, they target themselves. Interesting. Spyro, definitely a nice one. I'm going to play Mountain here. It doesn't conceal information, but I think that's good because I don't want them to cast a discard spell on the Spyro, but we're still going to cast Bloodbraid Elf here into a Kroxa. That's a nice hit. And we're just going to stay back with the Elf here. Opponent certainly doesn't have a land to pitch unless they are really playing around this Cascade. Another bolt, perhaps? Yeah, they're going to bolt us. Oh, they had 2 bolts. Got it. Yeah, we stay back. We've got all the advantage in the world. We just cannot afford to get cheesed out by the shadow, basically. Escaping Kroxa will be a great play. Casting Spyro from hand will be a great play. I'm taking the block here. I'm going to test him. I'm calling this a bluff here. TBR. Okay. Not a bluff, but at least we get that out of their hand kind of on our own terms. Yeah, I think it's probably time to escape Kroxa here. So now even though we grew the shadow, obviously the opponent is dead on the crackback if they attack in a lot of situations. That's even before we consider what Spyro plus our top deck could bring. So opponent will shock in. Put Lurrus into hand. Kroxa's really good at policing companions now that this is that they can't just be cast from the companion zone, right? So maybe they're considering whether or not to do that. It's a way to kind of turn Lurrus into a gain 3, I guess. Leave them not dead to just a bolt. Okay, well, we're bricking a lot, so let's stop doing that. Alright, Spyro, can you find us lethal here? Not quite, but there's another Spyro. Two Spyros to be exact. I'm not going to get Lurrus out of hand this turn. I'm just going to stay back and go wide. Kind of funny. Inquisition and Wrenn and Six. Okay, we're not really drawing any way through the shadow. But yeah, well, you know, I actually do kind of want to attack now. Just because Lurrus's lifelink is a problem, and then if they draw a basic, like a land or a bauble, we could get punished. Plus the Lava Spike from escaping Kroxa next turn might just be lethal, so I'm just going to use this as a way to get Lurrus out of hand. I don't think it's strictly necessary, but I also don't think it's incorrect. If we had drawn different spells here, we would have different incentives. Okay, opponent draws a Swifty, sure. Kroxa OP. Wrenn and Six with the ping for lethal. Alright, well, it was a bit of an ugly way to close it out, but we had every advantage, as I said, at the kind of mid-game stage. And from there, you know, we flooded, and then we got clunked up, and then we just failed to find a kill spell for that shadow, basically. But all in all, definitely a very fine display from the deck. So it will be interesting to sideboard here, because I imagine our matchup is good enough that we want to sideboard relatively conservatively. I think Nile Spellbomb would be a slam dunk. I'm a lot lower on Soul Guide Lantern here just because it can't give us the ability to have our cake and eat it too. And I think that's pretty important in this matchup. So I almost wonder if we want to play this card at all. Could catch them with relatively few basics with Wildfire, but I don't think that's the type of game we want to play. Plague Engineer is specifically good against Bomat Courier in a way that it's not against the Soul Guide, or excuse me, the Soul Scar Lantern version. Collective Brutality is interesting as well, but although there are a lot of candidates here, and then some might make the case for an Ashiok, I'm not going to play that. I really think we might do not much here. I think trimming a Wrenn and Six is fine. I think trimming a Thoughtseize, possibly two Thoughtseizes, is fine. Every other card looks good to me. Probably play a single Soul Guide Lantern and a single Plague Engineer. I think that's pretty good. Could argue for maybe trimming away Wrenn a little bit more, but Wrenn, like Plague Man, can prey upon Bomat Courier, and it is a little bit more reach. The Shadow decks can play fast and loose with their life total. And it's also a grindy matchup too, and Wrenn grinds like nobody else, so I like it. Okay, opponent had a little connectivity problem, but they're back. I'm going to keep the hand. It looks great even though it can't cast Wrenn on curve off this basic swamp. I will still keep it. We will just rather have to content ourselves with the ability to bolt or cling on T1 and Goyf on T2, which is great in the matchup. Opponent will mulligan to 6 and then cast a Bauble, targeting themselves for a little bit of scry value. They like what's on top. And we have drawn Overgrown Tomb, so we do get to represent T2 Wrenn if we want, which I guess is pretty good. So with that in mind, let's just run out this Catacombs ourselves. We can bolt up early play, or we can cling that Bauble. Which, you know, now that I think of it, it's actually unclear that that's the right play. Just because it's going to grow the Goyf, but obviously a Primo Lurrus buyback target as well. Let's see what they'll do here. Another Bauble. Alright, well now I'm clinging one of them, I guess. They'll Thoughtseize. Do we let it resolve, or do we cast a Cling to Dust? It's basically, do we value a random card more highly? I think I'm supposed to let this resolve. They take the Wrenn. Okay. Probably means they have like a... Oh, okay, another discard spell, sure. Once again, I'm just going to let it resolve. If they take the Cling, it'll mean they have a push for Goyf. They take the Goyf. Alright. This is all fair enough. I think we're rewarded for not firing off the Cling too hastily. And I also think I'm going to... Faction Shock here. Do we even need a second green? Should we get a third black or a second green? No, I'm sorry. We need to get Blood Crypt here. What am I talking about? Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to fire it off here just looking for... something proactive to do. The opponent just ripped our hand to shreds, took away both of our 2-drops. And we need to find a way to fire back. Opponent in response will bobble us so they know about the Inquisition we're about to fire off, which means we... once again, are kind of rewarded for that sequencing. I'm going to lead on Swamp here, yeah. Because number 1, we get to look at more cards because their Bobble trigger has resolved, and number 2, the Inquisition was nothing we were going to conceal anyway. Opponent has a Shadow, a Push, and a Bolt. Just going to take away the threat here. And if you can see why the opponent took away our Wrenn and Six... because we could be kind of snowballing the game with that card. Opponent rips another Shadow. Yikes. That's so rough. Okay. So if we bolt the Shadow, they'll bolt themselves in response. Shadow will survive. Let's draw Liliana. We draw Peatland, huh? Okay. I think we're just going to probably K-command to get a card out of their hand and buy back a Goyf. Or we could try to burn him out here. Buying back Goyf is kind of underwhelming in a couple ways, right? Okay, they're going to put Lurrus into hand, but we've got to do something here, and that's going to be what we do. I'm not going to go on the burn plan. We're going to make them discard and trust in our Jund deck to draw removal. If I had fetched differently there, we could actually have also untapped and bolted and K-commanded the Shadow. That might have been better, but then we're at risk of losing to Lurrus. I don't know. Should have thought about that one a little bit more, though. In any case, we're putting our faith into Goyf here. And our top deck. But yeah, I was just worrying about my life total because they've clearly pivoted to a pretty aggressive stance, having drawn that Shockland. But getting Forest was bad in a couple different ways. It shuts off that play, and also we need double red for Kroxa. We could need double red to double spell in general. Opponent will pitch Lightning Bolt. We draw Fatal Push. Never didn't have it. Is there anything that punishes us for firing it off main phase? Don't really think so. There's always a chance they throw the TBR on it. Don't think that's that likely. Alright, down you go. We found a way to get punished for it. Jeez. Didn't really have that card on my radar at all. Okay. Lesson learned. Definitely should have just main phased it. Now we are in big trouble, so we have to crack this. Soul Guide Lantern. Yikes. Okay, well, I think we are going to lose, but in theory, we are not quite dead. Their push beats our blocker, but we can shock in. Gain 3 life off of a Cling. Definitely just a bad play for me, I guess. Again, not a card that was quite on my radar. Alright, let's eat their other shadow, in case we miraculously extend the game, and I'm not going to tank too hard over what to exile, because I don't think it'll matter ultimately. Okay. We're at 1. The opponent has another shadow. Alright, I kind of doubt we were beating this progression anyway. Yeah, I'm going to give the opponent the win here. We could Kroxa see what they pitch. Opponent earned it. We punted by not just main phasing the push, going for the higher upside of catching them with TBR. Didn't work, and opponent's progression was pretty strong anyway. We, on the play, could do a couple things differently. I kind of suspect that we'll be configured just about as we are. Yeah, there's nothing I dislike, frankly, in our 60. You do have question marks over Wrenn and Six being a little too slow, and looping fetch lands can get a little painful, but you saw the opponent prioritized it with discard. There are lots of resource trading situations in which an early Wrenn will still be awesome. So I'm going to run it back just as is. We'll see how we do. This is a matchup where I think the Rock is better because we have a higher density of hard removal for the black threats, and we have relatively painless mana. We have Scavenging Ooze really shining in the Rock, whereas if it's in Jund, I think it's more of a necessary evil. That said, Jund has Kroxa, so if we get another Kroxa game here, we have every chance of getting there. And there were so many situations in the last game where like a top deck of Liliana would have been extraordinarily good against their board in hand. So we've got a better matchup than we showed that last game. Let's win it here in Game 3. What do you say? I'll be main phasing my removal for Game 3, don't worry. I feel like every time I've played against a Rakdos Shadow deck, I get punished for whichever one I do. Like, if I main phase removal, I'll then, like, tick up with the Liliana that I draw the next turn and there is a TBR in hand, and vice versa. If I don't main phase it, they'll top deck an Apostle's Blessing. Anyway, it's another totally fine keep. Not much more to say about it. We want to fade T1 discard so that we can draw the lands we need with the Wrenn. But yeah, totally fine keep. I think I'm pushing just about any threat on turn 1. Maybe even Bomat Courier, even though you can tick down with the Wrenn to kill it, just because we desperately do need to tick up with Wrenn. They've always had T1 discard. That's the thing that's hurting us here. I'd probably take the Wrenn here. But that can really reward us if we just draw the lands off the top. Yeah, down goes Wrenn. You hate to see it. And then a post-Thoughtseize bauble. That is interesting. Okay, we draw a difficult-to-cast Spyro. Man, oh man, how I wish we just had the Wrenn on the field. Don't get me wrong, Tarmogoyf's a really good card. We're making them have black-based removal as well as interaction, which is not a given. Our hand's also really powerful. I'm just worried about failure to cast spells, right? OP with a spell bomb. Nice, us with the third land. You love to see that. Definitely just going to play Liliana here. I think. Maybe I said definitely a little too soon. But yeah, I think it's going to be the Liliana. Let's see what happens here with this attack, though. Are we getting pushed? Nope, we're getting spellbombed. Got it. Blood Crypt will enable us to cast Lily this turn, Spyro next. And we're going to pitch Trophy because if we draw an untapped land next turn and they played something to the board, that is the dream. Also, Push should be able to kill every single thing in their deck besides Lurrus, even unrevolted, and Lurrus is not hitting the battlefield anytime soon. Plus, Push doesn't give them the free basic land. So, all things considered, Trophy is the pick unless we wanted to fully commit to removing everything and ditching the Spyro, but I cannot believe that to be correct, especially with a Liliana active for us. Well, they have Angrath's Rampage, so I guess she's no longer active, but Goyf is huge. Opponent with Agadim the Undercrypt. I really hope they shock in and play something to push. They don't. Yes, I know maintenance is coming. I'm trying to finish the league before it does. All right, so we've drawn another Fatal Push. That's so awkward, guys. Oh, man, it's so awkward. I think, pitching one push would have been okay. I can't bring myself to pitch both pushes, right? So I'm just going to smash with the Goyf. Presumably, now they will finally play something to the board. Hopefully they play two things. We just double push, untap, and maybe win with the Goyf, or maybe we just play Spyro and take it from there. All right. Rewarded. Rewarded at last. They play their two premier threats. We'll push them both. Feels good. GG's well played. Fatal Push is a strong card, my friends, especially against this deck. Okay, wow. That was an interesting one. I hope somebody out there is saved from an Apostle's Blessing sometime by my failure to play around one. I don't think it was strictly incorrect, but certainly I usually am somebody who errs on the side of caution, right? Just say, let's just make sure our 1-for-1 resolves rather than playing for the higher upside. So, maybe we would have lost that one anyway, but that high risk, high reward play didn't do us any favors. We still come away with the match win, though, so that feels good. I think our matchup would be quite good here if it was not for Companion. Because they have the free 8th card and because it's an impactful one against us, I don't know how to rate the matchup. Maybe 50-50-ish, with us having a bit of a wrong half of the deck potential. But we do get there. Feels good. See you for round 2. And we're here in round 2, and the opponent is a viewer of the channel. If I could type in English as a reply, that would be great. Opponent, Deceiver. Big shout out to Deceiver. Hi, good luck and nice to play against you, Grim, says our opponent. I will say hi there. Thanks much. Good luck, have fun. Deceiver will mulligan. We will keep. We're getting some really nice Jundi opening hands with a good balance of lands and spells, and this is no exception. Love the option to go turn 2 Goyf or Wrenn, depending on what the matchup calls for. That is basically the dream. However, we are against another Lurrus deck, maybe another Rakdos Prowess deck. That's certainly the first thing I expect when I see that. So I think our hand could beat a deck like that, absolutely. Well, it says, by the way, are you recording or just playing right now? I say planning to record this, no pressure. I say planning just because, things happen. But I am currently recording, but you never know. You never know. I don't even want to speak it into existence, right? But things can happen in any case. Yes, opponent will know that they are on camera, and they will bobble us wisely on the upkeep. It's a good sequencing. They're going to get the info, they're going to get the card by their turn, but if we have T1 discard, we won't see quite as many cards out of them. And they play Arid Mesa, and look at that, OP is rewarded, because we do draw Inquisition, which I'm going to snap off. Okay, double Scourge and a Fatal Push. The obvious play is to take Scourge, but Push is redundant. Push is less redundant. Still just gonna take a Scourge though, right? Let's be real. We gotta take that Scourge. Opponent says, so I would like to greet our Polish modern, and then says a Polish word or types a Polish word that I can't pronounce. Revolucja. Yeah, I won't even try. I don't know what to say to that, so I'll wait and see if they elaborate. Silent Clearing in Arid Mesa, so we're on the White Splash version, I guess. So we should expect, I suppose, Path to Exile out of the side. Opponent knows about this Verdant Catacombs, so that's the one that we'll play. I think I'm going to get a Forest and play the Wrenn. Bad with Kroxa, but we don't have one yet. And keeping our life total as low as possible to give ourselves the best possible chance of buying back Goyf. All right, wow. I'm not speaking well. Of bolting the Scourge. Yeah, buying back Goyf, where did that come from? That's something that we do, but not what I'm trying to talk about. Opponent bolted us, so down go our dreams of bolting a Scourge. So the draws have been Bauble, Bolt thus far. Some pretty good early game stuff from OP. Oh, okay. That's the local MTG group, so opponents shouting them out. So if you're a viewer of the local MTG group in Warsaw, Poland, whose name I can't pronounce, shout out to you. OP finding all the baubles, and we have found a Fatal Push. That is pretty good, you have to say. I'm just going to use it. Main phase. Feels like we're in a pretty commanding position here. And I don't see a need to play the Goyf out into their known fatal push, right? So we'll just hold up Lightning Bolt here. Opponent will bauble themselves and then shuffle away the top deck. And then they'll shock. They're going to see 2 fresh ones. And we're all lined up for a Bloodbraid Elf next turn, which is great. Opponent putting Lurrus into hand and still holding up push. Alright, they kind of time walk us this way, but I'd take a discard spell and we draw one. Wow, that's really nice. So yeah, let's just use that. Bloodbraid Elf is tempting, but I'm just going to take Lurrus away before they can loop it. They found a Shadow, too. Still going to play the value game of taking Lurrus. We're going to continue looping with Wrenn. If only we'd had a Liliana involved, this would be lights out. As it is, there's still a lot for us to like, but the nature of their deck is such that our position is not as deterministic as it would be if we were doing something like this against like a direct mirror, right? So opponents found a land, push Shadow, 1 unknown. We can't really bolt the Shadow now that they have a fetch land up. And they're just going to run it out. We could try ping it, bolt it. Alright, I don't think I will. Or will I? I mean, we could ping it with Wrenn, and then in a response to the fetch land, we could bolt it. We could also just Bloodbraid and see what happens first, but if we Bloodbraid into another Wrenn, that actively punishes us. Well, not really. Alright, yeah, let's just Bloodbraid it first, see what happens. Yeah, I'll cast it just to put it in the graveyard. Dang, I kind of felt it. So we keep the big one. Alright, hope they don't have a way to blow this out, but let's go for the ping. Cool. So now maybe they'll also be interested in pushing the Bloodbraid, which would be good enough for us because it clears the way for our Goyf. I'm going to attack, which I think makes them likelier to do that than they would otherwise be if we just stay back. If they find a second Shadow, obviously it could get scary for us, but yeah, they push. Okay, a good outcome for us, but also probably the right play from the opponent in that spot. We found Cling to Dust, which seems pretty good. Just at, like, being an X for 1. I think I'm going to do that and then main phase a Cling. If they have a Cling too, we could get blown out by this, but I don't think they will. We found Trophy. Little awkward because I grabbed my green land tapped, but I'm just going to run out the Goyf. We go shields down with Trophy, so if they have, like, lead on discard, we don't get to trophy a land, right? It's not that big a deal. Lightning Bolt. Alright, so it's still not quite lethal if we ping with Wrenn, but if they fetch, it is. So let's just attack with Goyf. Obviously, you could just march up toward the Wrenn ult, and then it'd be really hard to lose from there. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna ping the opponent and put them within bolt range if they fetch right now. Or just within bolt plus ping range next turn. If they answer the Goyf. Doesn't really matter what we eat here, does it? Show him the bolt. Opponent TBRing our Goyf. I respect it. Woo! Double TBR, let's go. That was impressive. Respect to Deceiver for sure. Unlucky draws though, no question. We get in a top deck war. We already have some determinism with Wrenn, and we're kind of answering everything they can do, and then they just draw their wrong half. They draw the TBRs. Guess what was the last card in my hand? The third? I don't think the decks usually play 3, but I'll say the third. Oh man. We'll take it, right, my friends? So with the White Splash and with them on Path to Exile, oh my goodness, unbelievable. They really had all 3 in hand. Well, I'm probably going to just kind of sideboard similarly to how I did before. Plague Engineer's a little worse because I don't think they're on... Well, they might still be on Bomat Courier, actually. I take that back. We just didn't see it. Still going to kind of trim a couple Thoughtseizes, trim a Wrenn. I think this is more than fine. We might want to be a little less eager to fetch basic lands. For fear of Path to Exile. So opponent says, sometimes the world just wants to see you dying. You know, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all, my friend. We have got ourselves a nice hand here, my friends. Inquisition into Kroxa. The big risk is like just too many early threats for us to answer, and we can't find removal off the top. But we do have Liliana. And like overall, they're like turn 1 Swifty starts into really aggressive stuff is not necessarily what they'll prioritize with the keep anyway. On the other hand, they're probably just keeping most functional hands against a Jund deck, right? And they do have turn 1 Swifty. Okay, this is how we could have so much pressure on our life total that they could beat us despite our good disruption. But let's see what happens here. We draw a land, which is not that exciting, but it does mean we'll get to cast a Liliana curve if that's good. And then we'll Inquisition. We see they kept a 1-lander, but they're going to see 2 new cards. Alright, so Kroxa's the big mirror breaker, but I think we're probably supposed to just take away... Alright. Do they have a really good way to get Shadow down early? I mean, it's just so hard to say without knowing what they're about to draw. Kind of want to take Bomat Courier and hope that they have a fail rate in their hand of not having drawn a second land. We're also lining ourselves up for the best Liliana Edict possible by keeping the board as clear as possible. It's a weird take, I admit that, but I think we're in a weird position. Because the opponent has a fail rate, but we also don't have any removal spells. And we've drawn Kolaghan's Command. Nice. Very nice indeed. We're running the Kroxa out into the Spellbomb. I don't mind that so much because we know that every single thing in their hand is good. Oh, Thoughtseize. Okay, well, at least we have Lily and K-Command now, right? But that's a well-timed Thoughtseize from OP. And it makes you wonder if they have a second land as well, because without a land, it's kind of unclear as to whether you're supposed to crack Spellbomb aggressively, right? But in any case... Alright, we just keep drawing lands. That's not the greatest, but we get to buy back Kroxa if we want to, and that would force the opponent to crack Spellbomb for no draw, which I think is pretty good right now. Yeah, that's my play. We could also shatter the Spellbomb to similar effect, I guess. This at least allows the opponent to potentially let us buy back the Kroxa, which if they're feeling like they really need the Spellbomb redraw, they might. Especially if they say, okay, Kroxa can trade for us 1-for-1 again, that's fine, we'll Spellbomb them away next turn and draw a card. So the more I talk it out, the more I think there's actually a kind of good chance they could let this whole spell resolve. But at the same time, surely they have to think long and hard about that. Because the only reason we just slam Kroxa into the Spellbomb again is if we once again, as we did on turn 2, don't have anything more proactive to do. Okay, OP draws a land. They have a Scourge. So now we can Kroxa to get Shadow or Blessing out of the hand, or we can just draw Lily of the Veil. Let's go. We're drawing pretty well, guys, not gonna lie. That was a really, really nice draw. So do we value getting Soul Guide Lantern down or Ravine down? I don't really know. I think just in case the game goes too long for comfort, I'm just going to get the Kroxa dead while I can. Get the Kroxa out of the yard, rather, while I can. Alright, now we want the opponent to not have a way to deploy the Shadow, but they do. They rip a fetch land. We can't really complain, because they've been mana screwed for a long time, but that's still a little scary. It's just what we needed to fade. Yep, taking up with Lily here. Yep, I'm not going to try to, like, crack Soul Guide in response. I think I'm just going to price them into attacking Lily off the... play my Kroxa, price them into attacking Lily off the field. Unless they find, like, TBR plus a land off the top with their 2 plays. And their Spell Bomb is pretty rough, though. Maybe we do have to crack Soul Guide Lantern. In which case I should have done it in response to the Blessing, in case we drew a push or what have you. I'm just deciding if putting them to 6 is worth doing here. I think it is, because, like, the reach of Raging Ravine is pretty significant under these circumstances, and I don't think Kroxa is really going to do much besides this. I mean, we could get Lurrus out of hand next turn, but I'm going to wait with the Soul Guide Lantern to see what they do. This is why this card is not my favorite, because with a Spell Bomb, it's pretty obvious you get to draw and clear out the graveyard, do everything we need to do, right? Okay, we just put ourselves dead to a lot, but high-risk line, I think, warranted here. Ooh, okay. Well, there we go. So, opponent found the land anyway. And we have a Goyf. Got it. Okay, well done, OP. Yeah, obviously Kroxa high-risk line there. With a Goyf off the top, we were just kind of chump blocking at best. So I don't think we had an out if we'd played that a little differently. But you never know. I would need to look back. In any case, let's hope this follows the same pattern of round 1, right? Not going to probably do anything different on the play. Yeah, run it back. Run it back, run it back. So opponent's discipline with a Spell Bomb, I think in some ways won them that game. Good game, well played. Yep, opponent says it was definitely an interesting one. That it was. We have a Keeper. I've seen better hands, but it definitely functions. It's definitely fine. And it could be quite good if we draw the requisite lands needed to curve out, or even just some early interaction to help smooth things out in the early stages. Opponent will mulligan to 6 and then remain there. Okay. We don't have a Wrenn anywhere in sight, so I'm going to run out Bloodstained Mire, which gives us the option to go fetch a Swamp Cling if that's what we want to do. doesn't give us anything to cling, huh? How rude. Okay, so I'm not going to cling my own fetch land when we're on a Kroxa plan. Oh my god, stop popping up with maintenance. I know. Okay, let's get Blood Crypt. We've drawn Lightning Bolt. Love to see it. That is our play. Still not a good cling target, but at this stage of the game anyway. They'll Thoughtseize, just letting it resolve, not clinging anything in response here. But I will cling their Thoughtseize on the end step if they don't take it. They take Bloodbraid Elf, playing for the long game. Yep, having dealt with their Swifty and having seen them Thoughtseize a Bloodbraid, I think I should aggressively try to curve out here and not miss a land drop. Even if that means fetching and shocking for this Cling to Dust. And we don't miss a land drop. Nice. Opponent asks which round in the league this is. This is the second one. Alright, it is Kroxa time. It's a really good spot for one, because we have drawn what we need to escape it next turn. We also get to get a tapped Ravine down, so the aggressive Fetch Shot Cling is rewarded. And we still have some good stuff in hand, like Trophy and Goyf, but right now our Graveyard X for 1 potential is what's looking really nice. Opponent still playing for the long game, puts Lurrus into hand. We have drawn Bloodchief's Thirst, so we could end up a little soft to some loops, and we are unfortunately losing some good fuel from our graveyard, but I will not pass up the chance to turn 4 escape Kroxa. It's so good in this matchup. And they pitch a Fatal Push, wow, which of course does answer the card. So I wonder what's going on here. With that play, they don't have a 4th land. Wow, I was expecting like Lurrus, buyback, a Swifty or something. Interesting. We draw another Tarmogoyf, sure. I mean, I'm very happy to just slam all my fattest threats here. See what happens, but let's try to go to attacks. All right, another push. To be expected, having pitched 1. If they didn't have the other things I speculated on, right? Awkwardly, Goyfs do die to lightning bolts right now, but we've already seen 1. I'm just going to play them both out. There's nothing we can really do about it anyway. They have 1. No, okay, they have Dismember. Alright, Goyf would have died to that under many circumstances anyway. And they have a push. Whoa, they just have the all removal hand. Got it. Well, you know, we're trading toward Kroxa, but the opponent rips a Spellbomb. Man. But we rip Inquisition. Okay, that's really good. So we get to take Lurrus out of hand. They're totally hellbent here. We'll just have a couple removal spells in hand against whatever they can muster off the top. Draw another land and we can start attacking with Ravine. Opponent, though, has a Silent Clearing, so they have some utility too, and we're kind of all even on cards. They have a much fuller graveyard, but again, we've dealt with Lurrus. No reason to believe they're playing Unearth. We haven't really seen it yet in either round. Okay. Opponent has found a land and a Scourge. We are just going to... I was thinking about being mana efficient, trophying the Scourge. Maybe we should actually just untap and hit it with the Thirst. It's probably better. We're punished because we draw land we could otherwise have attacked with Ravine, but it's fine. I thought about trophying in response to the fetch land activation to hit the clearing, but that can't be right. You know, just save the trophy for the threat, right? Okay. OP with a Swifty. Into a Bomat Courier. So whenever Courier attacks, you get to draw. So we need to trophy that before it goes to attacks. An awkward Assassin's Trophy target in some ways, but when OP rips 2 threats off the top, sometimes you gotta trophy a weenie. That wasn't the right land to get. I should have gotten a 3rd black, but I cannot imagine it mattering. Opponent sits back. Raging Ravine about to go to town. We've drawn Wrenn, which is a thing, but... Will opponent jump here? Just all in on drawing like a black threat? Or will they take the hit and try to like untap and put something together with Swifty? Maybe like a block plus bolt next turn could be on the table for them. They take the hit. Okay. You do understand it. Leaves them dead to a lot, but jump blocking is playing not to lose, right? We just draw a bolt. Okay. Just going to do the courteous thing and show them the bolt. GG's well played, my friend. Shout out to Deceiver. Shout out to... they drew a Blood Crypt. Alright, I'll reveal my Wrenn as well. GG's well played, my friend. All the best. Yeah, shout out to Deceiver. Very nice opponent. Yeah, they flooded a bit here at the end. Definitely unlucky. And, you know, we had kind of just the right mix of Jund cards to get us over the line. Love to end games with Raging Ravine. Definitely feels very, very cool. Opponent says, you two, good luck in the rest of the league. Awesome. Same to you, and there it is, my friends. A couple wins, well-fought wins by the, and well-fought games by the opponents is what I mean to say. Some tight wins, but also some comprehensive feeling wins at the same time over Rakdos Shadow. So far so good with Alex Cote's Jund. I will see you for round 3. Round 3, my friends. Our hand's a little slow, especially on the draw. I'm just going to keep it, though. The opponent's name is a little bit familiar to me, but I don't necessarily know what they're likely to be on. But I'm guessing Storm here. I'm also guessing my life total doesn't really matter against just about any Steam Vents decks, but nevertheless, I'm just going to play Mountain and say go. In some ways, this represents a bluffed Lightning Bolt more than other things would, but in other ways, we can seal exactly what deck we're on. And we draw Inquisition, so we've got some really weird Jund sequencing of turn 1 Mountain do nothing, turn 2 basic Swamp Inquisition, right? Definitely not normal, but a good draw. Okay, so Pyretic Ritual or Salundi Vision. It is indeed Storm. I kind of want to take the Ritual even though they have all these lands. Just, I mean, our hand is so bad against Storm, though. It's unreal. Like, they already have the gifts, right? I'm going to take the Ritual to stop them from chaining some stuff together off of a good draw. And to stop them from turn 3 gifting if we draw like a Thoughtseize here. We draw Nurturing Peatland. Yikes. Well, our really slow keep is punished. I'm going to pitch a land and a trophy here. Opponent finds a gifts off of the vision. Feels bad. Probably can't beat double gifts at all. Like, not even a little bit. Kroxa is an okay draw, just coming a little too late. And we're going to hold up Lightning Bolt in the hopes that they give us a window to hit. A bear with it, but this is the type of hand that doesn't really beat Storm. I'm just going to bin the Morphos and Ritual, and I think that gives us the most likelihood of making Lightning Bolt good, but I'm not worrying too much about it. Whoa, they discard another gifts. I don't know what to make of that. They're shocking in the vents, yep. Okay, here is a... They're floating a bunch of mana, then Serum Visions. Okay. Do they have, like, main deck empty the Warrens? Is that what we're looking at here? Okay, they have another Ritual. Yeah, that sucks. But that's why we took... They have another Monomorphos, too. I put the right cards in the bin, right? So they just drew what we put in the bin. There's Electromancer. And there's our Bolt. That's the best we can do. Yeah, so we just got... I think I put the right cards in the graveyard, right? Yeah, those are the ones I put in the bin. So I guess we took the right cards because they are going off because they had exact copies of what we put in the bin. Like I said, this is kind of the progression that we can't beat with our hand, almost certainly. That is Xaxes without them drawing anything else. Okay. Winnable matchup. Not a very winnable game one given our keep. There is certainly a non-zero amount of arguments to mulligan that in the blind, but It's another matchup where Soul Guide Lantern just feels really bad compared to Spellbomb, to the point where I'm not even certain I'm going to play it. I probably should, but, you know, they get a lot less graveyard-dependent post-side. And we just have so many cards that we're considering bringing in, many of which are slam dunks. Maybe Klothys is too slow. But Brutality, Ashiok are slam dunks, and I think we definitely want both Plague Men as well. If we're going to trim any removal, it should probably be Bloodchief's Thirst and Assassin's Trophy. With Trophy, you could see leaving one as a hedge against Aria of Flame. But other hedges against Aria include discarding it, drawing Abrupt Decay, depleting them broadly with Kroxa and Liliana so much that they can't put too much together with it. So Trophy being such a bad card in the matchup, otherwise we have so much to bring in, I'm probably supposed to cut it. K-Command is medium. Wrenn and Six is pretty bad. Everything else looks okay. Don't necessarily need to leave both pushes in, but I think I will. If we cut those, play like a Soul Guide Lantern over a Spyro, maybe. That could actually make a lot of sense. We could cut Wrenn altogether, but like one Wrenn to help curve out is still fine. Alright, I'm going to play both Lanterns, even though I'm not certain that's correct. I'm going to trim a Spyro. Plague Engineer is the gray ogre that Spyro often is in this matchup in some ways, and certainly is a better card on the whole. Yeah, let's run it like this. Okay, well, we hate to drop a game to Storm, but I think it gets much better for us post-side, and now that we know what we're against, we can keep more coherent hands, including this one. No early threat, but you can't pass up Thoughtseize into Cobrew. Definite keep. And we do have Bloodbraid Elf, of course, at the top end. Opponent with a really nice balanced keep as well. 2 lands, 5 spells, including Empty and Gifts. My instinct here is to take away the Empty and the Gifts. We're leaving them with a lot of good stuff, though. But since we don't have a quick clock, I don't think disrupting the low curve stuff and hoping that they'll stumble is really wise. So we're just going to attack the win conditions and the X for ones and let them sculpt their hand as they may. Hopefully we draw a Liliana or some more discard or early pressure. We've got a lot of really good draws. They go top with the Visions, yikes. Well, this one's not feeling too good in light of that. They drew another Empty, really? Oh my goodness. And they top? Oof. I'm just going to take Empty again. It's just a card we have no reason to think we can beat right now. I can't believe they drew another win condition, though. That really punishes us for kind of going after the top end. They filter, and then, interesting, they let it go. Okay, we draw Spyro. Sure. If we play him, though, and pitch both lands, there's a chance we don't get to Bloodbraid next turn, but I think we are taking high upside lines here. So let's do it. Question then becomes what land to play, and I guess just the Peatland is fine. Alright, well, we draw Inquisition and Brutality, so that's pretty good stuff, but no 4th land. That said, yeah, that shouldn't probably complain about any of this, but except they're just going to get to resolve the gifts, which really sucks, but Alright, so they use the ritual, they use the gift. Serum Visions is still in hand. Once again, I'm just going to bin both the rituals here. Is that correct? I think so. Alright, we can Bloodbraid, but I'm not going to. I'm going to Inquisition and then Brutality for sure this turn. They have drawn Grape Shot. Okay, let's think about this. Hitting both rituals here is not bad. They keep drawing the things naturally that we put into the graveyard off the gifts, though, which is really rough. Anyway, am I supposed to Brutality away the ritual and take the other one here? I think maybe the answer is yes. I'm going to, because that's kind of like where our hand has found itself. I'm following the cues of my hand. So their hand is Past in Flames, Monomorphose, Grape Shot, one unknown. They kick it off with a blind Monomorphose, which is kind of what we want to force them into if we can. And then they're going to Grape Shot the board. Wow. Okay, what does that mean? I don't know. I didn't expect that play, though, that's for sure. Alright, Draw of the Mountains are really unexciting. Let's go, Bloodbraid Elf. Something good here. Goyf. I accept, I guess. Pieces of the Puzzle. A very powerful card against us. They've been Empty, Canal, and Bolts, which means they kept Serum Visions and Saloon Visions, and then they'll Serum going one top, one bot. We will draw the Plague Man. Okay. Does punish us a bit for so aggressively attacking Empty the Warrens. The Spyro tokens don't really change the clock. Like, we've got them dead on board next turn anyway, so I think I'm supposed to crack Peatland looking for more disruption. Ashiok Dreamrender does qualify. So let's attack to make sure we don't shrink the Goyf first. And then we're going to play Ashiok, Self-Mill, exile the opponent's yard. And Goyf has been grown, which was not a guarantee, but definitely helps. So Ashiok shutting off further gifts ungiven. OP will go on a cantripping spree, opting to the top, and obviously we took away a huge graveyard, including a Past in Flames. Serum will go top bot. Grape Shot will help the opponent stay alive here by tagging Bloodbraid Elf and Ashiok a bit. Should we... Okay. They have instant and sorcery, so do we. So we could self-mill and exile their graveyard, try to put a Planeswalker in the graveyard, and we'd have lethal that way. We did it. A nice line. And a nice synergy. Didn't even reveal the Plaguester. Feels good. Alright. I like it. We saw Empty and Past in Flames and Grape Shot. We didn't really see anything that unusual. It's all relatively expected. I guess I like how we sided in light of that. Again, like the second Soul Guide Lantern's a little questionable just because it can't do both things that we want it to do, like Spellbomb would. However, still probably better than the first Wrenn or the third Spyro. Run it on back. OP likes their 7. I guess we like ours. Turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Decay or Bolts. We have 3 chances to draw a third land that could let us go Lily, hopefully, on curve, or maybe Spyro if it's a red land that we draw. I'll keep it. We definitely would love to see a deep mulligan in this matchup here on the draw, but opponents kept 7 all 3 games. Doesn't mean they have a nutty 7, though. It means they're wary of mulling aggressively against the discard deck, right? Bicodegea. 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 I don't know how you pronounce the OP's name. I've seen them around before. I don't know if they're a grinder or a streamer or anything, or maybe a trophy leader at times. I have no idea, but the name is ringing a bell, even though I don't know how to pronounce it. OP has been playing extremely quickly, by the way, clearly a Storm expert, but they are tanking right here, right now, over this decision, which is mighty interesting. And I don't think they're just AFK, like they joined the game, then they hesitated, then they played an island, then they hesitated. Now they're paying cost, but they're hesitating. Interesting, for sure. OP 1 top, 1 bot with the visions that they do eventually play. We've drawn Goyf, which is pretty cool. Third land would make me feel a little safer, but if they don't present a removal target... wow, they kept a 1-lander, but they almost certainly had to top a land, right? Empty the Warren's Gifts Ungiven. This time I think I'm supposed to attack the kind of bottom part of their hand, though, you know what I mean? So if we assume they topped a land, they could have topped another cantrip, I guess. Kind of want to take the opt, or, I mean, it's just, this is a really hard Thoughtseize decision. Maybe we're taking Monomorphos here. I think that's going to be my take. There's too much redundancy with everything else. There's 2 win conditions, there are 2x for 1 win cons, whatever, at the top end. There's 2 rituals. And opt, yeah, I think they either topped a land or a cantrip, so I'm going to take the Monomorphos. It stops them from, like, doing a lot of things, including maybe filtering into double cantrips, including just going off with a stronger turn. I thought they might do this. They might just make a decent-sized Empty the Warrens here, which you do definitely understand. We have failed to hit the land drop twice, so now we desperately need it next time. Feels so bad. Goyf is only a 2-3. That feels so bad, too. I almost don't mind kind of pricing them into that play, though. In theory, this is beatable, right? We have a Goyf, we have some removal. We can whittle them away with Liliana or just play her and tick up. We can rip a Plague Man, but a lot of this is contingent on actually finding that third land. But opponent certainly extends the game by a lot this way. They will top with the opt, so they're finding a lot of really good stuff, to be fair, after keeping a 1-lander. We do have to acknowledge that. And then they shove with the goblins, huh? I respect it. Mountain, okay. So it is Spyro time. I think I'm going to pitch lightning bolts, even though it's efficient +1. Are we just like pitching both our bolt and our decay? Probably. You know, Lily, maybe Lily is past her prime here, but we have to play for high upsides and assume that Lily, like, maybe we can catch them with a good time to +1. We found Plague Man too. All right. I think this is a good enough blocking board that I'm supposed to ship in with the Goyf, even though it's still only a 2/3. Let's hope they just, like, go for another big Empty the Warrens right at the end of whatever their play is going to be. Wow, they shove with these goblins. I didn't expect that. Whoops. Don't need to double block. Fascinating. Losing 3 goblins to get 2 points of damage across against my really wide board. I don't know if I fully get it, but we do have bigger problems than the goblins now. So I'm going to Bloodbraid here. High upside plays continue. That's what we're looking for anyway. Don't want to show him the Plague Engineer. Cling to Dust. Sure, I will hit... I guess empty the... Well... No, I'm going to hit Monomorphose. I, like, want them to go all in on an empty. Leave the blocker back here. Just for fun. Don't want to get cheesed out by, like, 2 attacks plus a grape shot, so we kind of split the difference here. Our Goyf is just sadly so small compared to how big it usually would be in this type of situation with huge graveyards on both sides, and it's turn 4. We've drawn push off of the Cling, so note if you're looking at the hand that we couldn't have held it up this turn if we'd sequenced differently. Otherwise, we might have. I think I'm once again supposed to bin the rituals here. See, opponent has not missed a land drop yet, but they kept a 1-lander. Even this 5th land I think is really scary, and they have a ritual. Geez, I don't mean to complain, but every single time they've resolved a gift, we've put something in the graveyard and they've had another copy of it. So now we're just dead. PIF gonna ensure that double grape shot. Or just like a rituals into a grape shot, right? They have mono red. Yeah. Unreal. Oh, okay. Well, it's empty into a grape shot. And grape shot's exactly lethal. So it's styling from the OP. You know, if we even had 1 more point of life, we would actually win, almost certainly. We lose by exactly 1. Because we just... I guess we'd need 2 more points of life, right? Because they have 2 attackers here. So opponent definitely... Hey, I was wondering aloud about some of the goblin attacks. They squeezed every point of damage out of those goblins early on, and that proved to be exactly what they needed. Now, again, they keep a 1-lander. We have enough disruption to make a 1-lander super clunky, and they still put a turn 5 kill together. And I take nothing away from them because their play is clearly expert, and I don't know if mine was in terms of putting every gifts pile into the bin correctly. But note, they again, didn't miss a single land drop after keeping a 1-lander. And I think every single land drop there was crucial to their victory. If they had stumbled even once, look at our hand. I think we can punish it. And look at our board. It's pretty good. But we don't quite get there. So well done to the OP. Interesting games, good games. And we will go on to round 4 with Alex Cote's Jund. Okay, here we go. Round 4 with a very questionable one. The only reason I'd be inclined to consider keeping it is because Cling to Dust represents an X for 1 in even potentially the mid-game under these circumstances. Should probably send it back, though. Yeah, we're going to send it back. Okay, this is a pretty good 6. However we bottom, I think we're going to go full depletion mode. So let's keep it bottom a swamp. And just go Inquisition, Kroxa, Inquisition, or something to that effect with Abrupt Decay hanging around. So we're disrupting really well in the early game. We're against zombies, I guess. Wow, cool. Okay, so double Ether Vial. Diregraph Captain, Geralf's Messenger. I guess we'll take the Captain. I'm going to leave the Ether Vials alone. If there is only one, maybe we take it. If there's 2, forget about it. We're not getting rid of the second one before it hits the field anyway, so let's just take away all of their actual action cards, right? I guess we could have Inquisitioned one and decayed the other, but following this plan is definitely good too. I have no idea what to expect out of blue-black zombies. I have never seen the deck before in Modern. Pretty cool stuff. And they're at a similar record to us. I guess they're 2-1 or so, which is really cool. It's not like we're meeting them in the 0-3 bracket or something, right? Opponent doesn't know that we have another discard spell, so it might not be clear for them what to pitch. They might think they can get... Yeah, they get rid of Ether Vial, sure. I was going to say they might think they can get the Messenger down on turn 3 if they don't pitch a land here. And now it opens back up the line of Decaying Ether Vial as, like, somewhat relevant. Undead Augur. Okay. The card seems pretty good. They will Vial in response. Am I supposed to bolt the Augur in response? I don't know what they could have here. We're obviously about to hit the Messenger with this Inquisition. I think I'm going to bolt now. Number 1, to play around any spell they could have out of Vial. Or any ETB they could have out of Vial. And number 2, it lets us see another card to Inquisition that they're going to get either way, right? Because there might be something we have to take a little bit higher priority than Messenger. Opponent with a Carrion Feeder. Okay, that rewards us because they don't get to sack it in response. Sure. And they've just drawn another land. So Messenger's down. Opponent playing totally off the top, but they can play at instant speed through Vial. And to be fair, we don't really have anything else besides a Decay either. But all of our draws are good, basically, except like swamps and forests, because we're in Overgrown Tomb number 2, because we can either escape Kroxa or we're drawing action. Thoughtseize. Well, okay, I lied. We've got some bad ones. So we're just going to pass and decay something. And I admittedly did not think about discard spells when I made that claim, my friends. My apologies. But the opponent's still like a synergy deck. Whoa, Leech-Ridden Swamp. Interesting. What a deck. But, you know, they're still a synergy deck with kind of low card quality, I would assume, compared to ours on average. I'm going to let this Vial resolve. We've got Soul Diviner. Okay. They've got this might actually be kind of a tough matchup, because they're really dirtily, it seems, but so many of their things draw cards. I'm just going to decay that before they can untap and turn Ether Vial counters into Gas. And they'll continue beating us down with Carrion Feeder, but that's something we should be able to beat. So, yeah, it's like a really dirtily zombie tribal deck that seems specifically good against VGX. Which, again, it's really cool, not hating. Lazotep Reaver. Another slow card that's good against midrange, and Leech-Ridden Swamp is now going to speed up their clock a bit. We draw another Thoughtseize, really? Oh my goodness. Not like this. I think we're supposed to do nothing and try to draw a fourth land to escape Kroxa, which is still probably relatively unbeatable for them from what they've showed us. But, you couldn't make this up. We should be in such a commanding position. We should radically out-top deck them on average, too. They have a couple more Ether Vials that are relatively dead. They only attack with one. I wonder why. Cryptbreaker. And we draw a non-red land. Are you kidding? And, everything they're doing is drawing a card. So, okay. Let's crack Peatland. We'll have Kroxa next turn, but there's only so many times we can kill their dirtily card advantage threats before they stick one when this is happening. So the draw of Cryptbreaker obviously makes total sense why they didn't shove all in with an attack there. It's pretty cool stuff from the OP. Now we just have to hope that they flood, even through the Cryptbreaker draws. They've drawn a Gravecrawler. Okay. Well. Yep. Opponent splitting the difference between aggroing us out and holding up their draw. I like it. Far too late for Lily to be good, although there were windows where she would have been for sure. But now we can finally escape Kroxa. And I don't believe it will be enough, but it is our play. They had another Gravecrawler in hand. Oh my god. Even that little thing punishes us so hard, it's unbelievable. They don't lose the life, and it's something they can cast for one next turn. Okay. Well, I guess this is a zombies deck that really wants to run into mid-range decks. This is the classic question of what do they even do against combo? What do you even do against combo and big mana? But, again, the deck is really, really super cool. Can't hate it. And we're dead. We got wrecked. We got wrecked really badly. Alright then, well. Card like Klothys seems amazing. This is, for literally every single match in the league, I wish we'd had Spell Bombs over Soul Guide Lantern. We haven't run into Oops All Spells, but we have run into just, the wide swathe of modern decks that use the graveyard in a non-all-in way, and therefore incentivize us to play efficient, value-neutral disruption. Brutality seems fine. Plague Man is obviously a slam dunk. That's probably it. So these plus probably Soul Guide Lanterns. They go wide enough that I think like trimming a Liliana is good. Possibly trimming another. Wrens are okay. I mean, the grind matters. There are a fair amount of X1s that could get picked off. Some of them are recursive, some of them maybe are not. I'm going to cut both Thoughtseizes here. Maybe we don't worry that much about the graveyard overall. I know there's a lot they can do, but like if we're just kind of killing all the most things, don't care that much about Gravecrawler, even if they have the ability to get it back. Are we supposed to just like trim a third Lily? I don't think so. I think she's pretty good actually on the play, like to the point where I don't even necessarily want to trim 2 copies like I am. At the end, we lost to, like, Gravecrawler and some tokens and stuff, but remember the mid-game, how we were forced into killing, like, the draw engines, like Undead Augur and the blue-black one from Horizons, or thereabouts, whenever it was. Anyway, is it correct to trim a Kroxa here? Probably not. Seems tough for them to beat. So I guess we kind of have to take 2 Lilies out. We're not going to play with Soul Guide Lantern. Let's find one more cut. Probably just only 1 Collective Brutality is fine. Alright, well, I guess in order to make Zombie Tribal viable in Modern, you do probably have to lean into your strengths, which I guess is outgrinding other grindy decks. That's what the opponent is up to. We've got a totally respectable keep of Inquisition into Goyf into Spyro. And our risk is flooding, but Spyro mitigates that quite well. Opponent will mulligan as well, so feeling pretty good here. But you never know. You never know what blue-black zombies could bring to the table. I will play Swamp because I think we're playing Goyf even if we draw a Wrenn next turn. Okay, opponent does have Ether Vial, Carrion Feeder, Fatal Push, Geralf's Messenger. A tough hand to disrupt for sure, because it is very balanced. No take here is bad. Kind of want to take Fatal Push and just say, can you beat the Goyf into Spyro into whatever else we could draw? I think I'm going to do that. If they rip a really high density of good stuff, we could get punished for that, make no mistake. However, I think just seeing what we have seen thus far, both from their hand and from their deck as a whole, this is totally fine. Well, there's only 1 Stomping Ground in the deck, so we actually have to shock this in if we want to play Goyf this turn and then play Spyro next turn. So we have to double shock. But, you know, if we didn't play Swamp last turn, we would be double shocking at least anyway. And we also don't get to grow the Goyf this turn with a fetch land, but that shouldn't matter. It still doesn't die to, like, a Brutality. And before we attack next turn, we'll have fetched, right? Okay, OP draws a land, but they don't play Leechroot Swamp. I don't necessarily understand that. Does that mean they have a 2-drop they're representing here? I don't know. Like 2-drop interaction is really what I mean. Because otherwise you'd think they would get the ETB tapped land down. I'm going to ship in with the Goyf and we're going to fetch and shock before damage to get an extra point in. And we're going to clear out some of this flood. I think I'm... Okay, opponent will, in response, Ether Vial. Sure. And then what? Okay, they're just taking their actions now. They weren't holding anything up. So maybe they have yet another land in hand. That's my read now. We pitched 2 lands into a Bolt and a Goyf. Seems pretty good. You gotta be wary of Carrion Feeder tricks, but... No, so they kind of missed a window to get Messenger down. Again, I don't really know if I understand that. Attacking with both, we're going to see what they've got. We can grow the Goyf at instant speed and beat the Carrion Feeder with a Lightning Bolt. So they do nothing. I think I will just Bolt here. Will I? Maybe we should be a little more responsible and kill it with Collective Brutality in the second main. Yeah, we're not growing the Goyf. Well, we are growing the Goyf by killing a creature, right? Okay. I think this is fine. So we miss a point of damage this way, but I think we play most optimally around unknowns by attacking, forcing them to make the first move. All right. They don't have anything, so there is still a tension here between preserving our life total or fetch shocking to... No, sorry, we can just get Swamp, and then we've got Goyf this turn, and Kroxa can be escaped in the future if we find one. Getting double Swamp feels awkward, but I think it's correct here. All right. Feels good to still have this Bolt in the back pocket, but they'll just concede. All right. I want to say I think the opponent sequence with their land's just a tad bit wrong, but it just seems like they didn't have the ways to beat us anyway, so I doubt it mattered at all. But yeah, it seems like they were just kind of flooded at the end, because they were just about ready to double spell, or figuratively with Vile, or literally, or both. But anyway, that was pretty good. I like that a lot. What do we like a little less on the draw, if anything? I could see trimming a Wrenn on the draw, bringing back like a... I don't know, playing a second Brutality could be okay. Even playing a Thoughtseize or maybe a Soul Guide Lantern. I think I'm just going to play a second removal spell. Alright, well, that was a lopsided couple games. Let's hope for a victory here, whether lopsided or otherwise. I will... It's a little slow, but as you saw last game, Tarmogoyf seems like a tough card for them to beat on the whole, so I'm going to keep the functional hand. Opponent with a turn 1 Vile every game. That's not nice to encounter, but we've drawn our third missing land. Wish it was a fetch land, so it would be 1 point more painless and grow the Goyf. But opponent plays fetch lands too. Maybe they'll be so kind. Okay, if they play some kind of draw effect here, I think we're going to be pressed into killing it, leaving the Ether Vial alone. Withered Wretch. This is the Black Scourge. The Zombie Scourge. Wow, how cool. One exile target card from a graveyard. That's pretty cool. Alright, so do we want to decay this Vial? I mean, the Wretch beats our... beats a lot of our hand, actually. The Wretch is actually pretty rough. I think once again we should try to kill every single action card and ignore the Ether Vial. I think. Yeah, I'm going to say Withered Wretch is actually kind of a problem for us given our hand. So I'm going to shock this in, we're going to pass, and then in response to a Vial activation, if they have one, we'll Decay. Because I bet it's probably a, what's it called? Carrion Feeder. If they had just untapped, we would Decay in response to them putting another counter on Ether Vial. They put a Crypt Breaker in. Got it. Alright, so Plague Engineer blows that out. That would be a great draw. They do have a Carrion Feeder, never mind. I mean, Plague Man's still going to be good at most stages of this game, but... Alright, I'm just happy that we're not really seeing the draw effects, and against the Carrion Feeder, like playing Liliana ticking down is okay. We've drawn Kroxa as well. You know, I actually think I kind of like Kroxa Hold Up Cling to Dust. Try to clear the board as much as possible, then stick a couple Goyfs. We might be able to get 3 drops out of their hand this way. Or even a Fatal Push, something like that. Okay, they'll Vial in response. Yikes. All the draw effects. But, like, they're drawing between... I mean, oh man. Yeah, this is actually so rough. I really wish we just had a Fatal Push there, or a Bolt, or anything. This Withered Wretch would have been doing work, though, if we attacked the Vial. Carrion Feeder hitting us for 1. I got it. You got it. Everything draws a card. Even tribal decks are this way now. Everything draws all the cards. Okay. I don't know what we need to do now. They have just so much gas. We have Inquisition. That's a badly timed one. Gonna take a high upside line of playing Spyro here. I think we're pitching Inquisition plus another Spyro? Yeah. The Goyfs are still good. The Liliana even is still potentially okay. Alright, we've drawn another Kroxa, so maybe we can just, like, go over the top of them. Opponent's found a Messenger. Jeez, their curve out. Unbelievable stuff. Literally couldn't draw it up better for the OP, I don't think. But, you know, we'll have some really huge threats. They also did all of that main phase, which could reward us if we had an Inquisition or a removal spell, but we don't. They did that on our first main phase, is what I mean to say. Yeah, this loop is insane. Messenger and Soul Diviner. And Carrion Feeder. It's insane. Again, you wonder what they do against decks that aren't us, but it is impressive. Castle Lock Flame. Again, just more grinding tools. Can't have enough. Okay. Are we supposed to quadruple block the Carrion Feeder? They can then... We won't take damage that way, I don't think, because then they sack the messenger to the feeder. Then they'll take a counter off of it, but they can only do that once. I'm going to do it. We could all... Another line is just to chump block one of them, but I'm going to do this and try to clunk their turn up as much as possible. And maybe force them to cash in something that matters, but maybe not. Are they going to... They're going to discard a card to make a zombie. Interesting. So they just have, like, no bricks with this board state. Okay, I mean, I see, I get it. They found something to violin on 3, obviously. Diregraph Captain. Oh, yeah. Okay. Again, they couldn't ask for a better curve out than this, I don't think. We need to draw the damnation that is not in our deck. I guess that's what we need. Big yikes. Yeah, this is really frustrating, not gonna lie. Well, I mean, if you look at our league so far, opponent has no chance against Storm, but they're beating us, and they could probably beat the Rakdos Scourge deck as well, so it might be a pretty cool meta call. If you think the meta's grindy enough. Okay, so nothing opponent doesn't have here. We're just overwhelmingly dead on board. Yeah, look at the size of everything. I concede. Pretty rough, guys. Pretty rough. Opponent's deck is pretty well constructed in terms of beating ours. I think we got pretty unlucky despite that. They never didn't have turn 1 Ether Vial, and the nature of their threats is such that I never felt able to answer the Ether Vials. Like, if we had just hands loaded down with removal, then sure, but we were on, like, a single decay for, I think, a couple of these different games. If any one of these cards sticks, Soul Diviner, Undead Augur, Crypt Breaker, like, even Withered Wretch under these circumstances with our own hand being so graveyard dependent at the time, it's just going to run away with the game. So again, this is just seemingly teched to really beat up on mid-range, and we saw that here. We can beat them, if they don't have a really good curve out, though. If our curve out is good, we can punch a hole in it, our card quality is higher, etc., etc. But that is definitely one that hurts to lose, but we do indeed lose it. And we are 2-2 playing for a cashed league in round 5. Fifth and final round here. It's a greenless but pretty nutty opening hand if they're playing to the board. Even if they're not, we draw the third land and Lily into whatever into Inquisition is pretty... Or, wow, other way around. Inquisition into whatever into Lily is pretty good, so I'll keep it. Oof, 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 oof. Hope I didn't complain too much in that last round. I just really, 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 really feel punished when people When I am on mid range and I run into decks that, as far as I can tell, only beat mid range. You know what I mean? It's like, we're not the bad guys of the format, trust me. But some people just like to, okay, we are against a pseudo mirror. I guess Jund Shadow is what this looks like to me. I'm actually going to take away their Thoughtseize because we have a ton of good removal in hand, and we want to stick the Lily. But as I was saying, some people are, like, dedicated to making a tribe work, and I think that's the case, like, with a lot of those situations. It's like, well, or a specific kind of fringe archetype. It's like, well, this archetype might not be tier 1, but there are at least enough cards that are good at beating mid-range decks that I can get there if I run into them. So if that's the case, I respect, like, dedication to an archetype in that way, for sure. So opponent confirms my play by cycling into an Inquisition, then taking away the Liliana. We'll reveal info, show them the Bloodstained Mire. Just because it's the correct land to play under these circumstances, and now it's anybody's game, because we don't have the Mirror Breaker of Liliana, so we will just have to see who draws better off the top, basically. It's looking like what it comes down to at this stage. I say that on turn 2, but it's kind of true, right? Ooh, opponent fetching a basic. I do like that, because they're probably not on very many. Okay. I think I'm going to fetch, then just untap and use a Bloodchief's Thirst here. There are a couple things that punish us for it, but not as many as you might think, and we draw Thoughtseize, which I do like a lot right now. They have a push and a shadow. I think I'm still supposed to take every threat away at this stage. A lot of the good threats that we have are not especially bad against push, like Spyro, Bloodbraid Elf. If we draw another Liliana, this really rewards us. And also, if we draw another discard spell, this really rewards us. We draw a Wrenn and Six, which I'll take just because it's something proactive to do that does not die to push. Let my client catch up to our thoughts here. So we're assuming the Jund role here in these matchups that are, this is, you know, kind of like the Rakdos Scourge deck, right? Where our removal lines up so well and we have more X for ones, usually in the form of Planeswalkers more than anything else, that it's just pretty nice for us if we can trade one for one and stick one of them. Opponent doing a lot of work here, though, with their redraws and so forth. Opponent will know about our Tarmogoyf. Well, I see no need to run it out into their push just yet. Let's keep looping the Wrenn and work toward ultimate. I think opponent knows about both the removal spells in hand and therefore our entire hand. Could be wrong. Got the feeling they had drawn a discard spell. Down goes our push. And there's a shadow for them. I think once again we can afford to untap here. what if we draw Bloodbraid Elf? That's the main thing that I really... Okay, just in case we draw Bloodbraid, or I guess Spyro to a lesser extent, sure, we can trophy now. Liliana, okay. Definitely really good. Although part of me was thinking that, like, if one reason not to is we could draw Liliana and take down. But obviously, taking up is good here, too, because we have the free land that Wrenn picks up to pitch. They lose Dismember, so push is still in hand. And we'll try to wait them out one more turn before deploying our Goyf. The classic Junding out is in progress, my friends. I'm going to keep that second Wrenn around just so we can ult with the first one, then deploy another one. Seems really good. No reason not to, right? Maybe if we were trying to grow the Goyf, we would pitch it, but we're hanging on to the Goyf. We're playing a pure control game. Opponent has drawn Street Wraith for turn. They'll cycle it away. Not quite able to hardcast it yet, but that is something that happens in these matchups. They found a Shadow. We have found a Kroxa. Alright. There's no bad line here. The opponent doesn't make us figure out which line is our favorite of many good ones. They'll just concede. Yep, so Edict the Shadow. Kroxa gets rid of the Fatal Push, play the Goyf, we ult the Wrenn. We could even do that in a different order and play the second Wrenn first before our Goyf, buy back a land, empty our whole hand. It would have been a nutty turn. But all unnecessary. That game was over. So, I think once again we're not going to sideboard all that heavily. I'm probably not that interested in Lightning Bolt and maybe cutting like a single Thoughtseize, but discard effects are pretty good too. Mixed feelings about Wrenn, especially on the draw. It's a little slow and embarrassing when they have a really aggressive, disruptive start. On the other hand, it's definitely a good grindy card, as we saw there. Once again, Nihil Spellbomb would be a slam dunk. Soul Guide Lantern has got me really sketched out. I don't love Ashiok in this matchup on the draw. Maybe one on the play, depending on what we see. Like, are they definitely playing Traverse? I don't know. They didn't show us, right? So, and then an absolute madman line is to go Cleansing Wildfire mode and really basic check them, but I don't think I shall, right? I don't think I'm going to, so I'm going to play a Lantern, a Plague Engineer, which is another somewhat unimpressive card, but it does trade with all their big threats. Maybe just both Plague Men. No, sorry, you know what? On the draw, I'm going to play with the full complement of discard effects. And we'll see how it all goes. Opponent taking the draw? Interesting for sure. And now declaring Aluris, which, unless I totally missed it, I don't believe they did in Game 1. In either case, I will keep this Liliana hand. And we'll lead on Catacombs, really not wanting to cling my own card, but potentially able to do so if the situation calls for it. With 2 Clings in hand, I think I'm supposed to. We're just gonna see some more cards this way. So sure. We draw another Goyf, I'll take it. We draw Bloodchief's Thirst, I will take that as well. So we're going to run out of Goyf. Looks like the opponent's 6th. Or maybe just 6th through the end step. It'd be really good if they don't have a Fatal Push or Dismember here, simply because it means that, like, next turn they probably can't do everything. But looks like they have removal. And that's okay, too. Let's just Fade Discard and we'll be totally fine. We gotta also remember Veil of Summer as a card. But if they just tap out for a Goyf here, I'll be thrilled. Ask and you shall receive. And we draw Fatal Push as well, so definitely resolving Lot V here. Under such things as Veil of Summer, if they have them in the deck. And then we get to untap and take it from there. I think you understand the principle of giving me the play here, but it can really punish the opponent against specifically Liliana progressions, and that's what's happening here. That's not to say the game's over or anything, but yeah, they have to decay her, so a really good outcome for us. You know, I didn't need to fetch main phase, did I? Probably should not have, actually. Oh well. How good is a second green? Probably not very with Kroxa around. Alright, I'm just going to get a swamp here. Didn't need to fetch main phase, though. It does feel like the opponent has another kill spell at least. That makes sense why they would want to decay the Liliana rather than let her sit around and +1, like getting the removal spells out of their hand that way. Note that Bloodchief's Thirst can kill Lurrus when we kick it, which will have the mana too if the game gets that long. But here comes another push, I guess. Or Dismember. What is not in the yard? Sorcery is not in the yard? That's kind of rough. But nothing we can do about it now, right? Okay. Not sure what we want the opponent to have here. I remain in fear of Veil of Summer. So I almost want to see them tap out just for something. Even putting Lurrus into hand. At the same time, if they just do nothing, we can cling and stuff. Alright, let's play a cling here. We've drawn Bloodbraid Elf. Alright, we're going for the push. Hopefully no Veil. If they do, we can at least untap and Thirst. If we draw an untapped land, we can also Bloodbraid, but there is no Veil of Summer. So let's just YOLO with the Bloodbraid Elf, see what we've got. Another removal spell in hand is not a bad thing, though, I can tell you that. I'd take, like, almost any live card is good here. We don't have almost any whiffs, because I think we've drawn like all of our whiffs. Sure, I'll take Wrenn. Exactly one fetch land to buy back. You'll love to see it. And you best believe I'm getting in with this BBE because the opponent is the one on the back foot. They're on the ropes. And we're not worried about turning on Scourge or Shadow because we, once again, have removal chilling in hand. Opponent with a Seal of Fire? Yeah. Feels like a top deck. Is it going to be Seal then put Lurrus into hand? It is. Kroxa. Okay, cool. Definitely seems good. Let's attack first. I think they're going to seal the Bloodbraid here. Alright, so if we pick a land back up with Wrenn, we can both play and escape Kroxa, which is nuts. Pinging was starting to look interesting, but nah. Kroxa's way better. Yeah. Kroxa just breaking these pseudo mirrors in half, my friends. Leave a little variety of cards in the graveyard. Cling to Dust if the game goes long is another X for 1. Verdant Catacombs we can keep picking back up with Wrenn, and Bloodbraid Elf is a good buyback target with Kolaghan's Command. But at the end of the day, you have to imagine it doesn't matter that much what we do there, because we just had a nutty turn. We've got a nutty board and a strong hand, and the opponent just had to pitch Fatal Push and Lurrus to our Kroxa, which is real nice. So I don't know what they can have from here to really stay in it. They have a Thoughtseize. That shouldn't do it. In fact, that puts them dead to any Kroxa trigger. So they just Thoughtseize to show us that they had a bad top deck, or to see what else we were holding on to satisfy their own morbid curiosity. And we kind of dumpstered Jund Shadow with some really nice progressions from our end. And we cash the league. Well, there you have it, my friends. That was our league with Alex Cote's Jund. The bad news is that it was only a 3-2, and the good news, everything else is good news, right? We ran into a blue-black zombies deck, which is really not meta. I don't think it ever can be with their particular configuration. Obviously, anything can happen with new printings, right? But, like, it is a meme at this point, and again, I stress that I hope I have not complained about it too much, but it really is the salient point there. It really is the burning question. What does such a deck do against any of the linear decks, against any of the MDFC combo decks, or even traditional combo like Storm Ad Nauseam, etc.? What do they do against big mana? Even what do they do against some really aggressive decks like Prowess, but if they are running into maybe the Lurrus companion decks like we saw for most of the rest of the league, or into a traditional mid-range deck like ours, I don't even know if they can reliably beat Uro piles with that type of looping. but maybe against a more traditional control deck they'd fare pretty well too. It's pure speculation, I need to see a list. But anyway, my point here is, let's not get too wrapped up in results-oriented thinking, because that is just like, Jund is probably one of the only decks it feels favored against, right? And again, I take nothing away from the opponent. They got a really cool synergistic deck. They played it flawlessly as far as I can tell, besides maybe a sequencing land thing that didn't matter. But don't judge this list, Alex, on that. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that. And then we were against a Storm expert who played really well and squeaked one out against us. If we had had 2 more points of life, I think we play Plague Man and we just win. Maybe on the spot, maybe they have 1 turn to draw a bolt. Otherwise, that would have been game there too. So, against the meta decks, we faced Jund Shadow once and Rakdos Scourge twice. Those are meta decks. Those are ones that you're more likely to encounter than zombies. And Storm is in the meta too, but I think Storm is favored for us, or at least it's close enough that we could get there on perhaps a majority of days. Didn't happen to do so today. But against the Lurrus companion decks, my goodness, did our decks shine. One big problem for traditional mid-range decks, including BG Rock perhaps more than others, is when the opponent is on a companion, it's that free 8th card. And with the free 8th card in and of itself is a big issue, and the nature of what the free 8th card does in the case of Lurrus is also an issue. So that alone has tipped the scales against me many a time. So the fact that we went 3-0 against Lurrus companion decks that are top tier meta decks, I think this was a resounding success for your list, Alex, and also for the traditional Jund archetype as a whole, even though it was only a 3-2. I hope you understand why. My play also, I know, was not perfect. There were 1 or 2 things where I wasn't sure about, and as always, I could have missed something. You could argue sideboarding finer points in certain matchups, whatever the case may be. In any case, I think this was a really cool league, a really fun league. And what did we really take away? I mean, Wrenn and Six was preposterously good here yet again. Kroxa, Titan of Death's Hunger, preposterously good here yet again. Liliana was she really shone here. I think at almost every time, except maybe against a really wide Goblins board or Zombies board one time, we really dominated the game with her when we found her, and often when I didn't have her, I found myself wishing to draw her. So this was a good Liliana league as well. We saw a lot of discard effects at some pretty decent times. That was pretty sweet. Most of our wins were just traditional Jundings out. Spyro played a pretty good role here, and we had a lot to like. So I don't think there's really anything much more to say. Against Storm, we drew our Plague Engineer. I think we had an appropriate balance of hate against Storm. Now, the one thing I will say is that I really regret having Soul Guide Lantern in this list rather than Nile Spellbomb. All 5 matchups, Nile Spellbomb would have been way better. All 5. And really, I don't think that's just random. I think the only time Soul Guide Lantern is even really comparable to Spellbomb is in weird situations, maybe when you really need an ETB because there's a lot of prison effects flying around, like Stony Silence style effects randomly, Pithing Needle style effects, but that doesn't really happen, and those cards aren't very good against Jund anyway. So besides that, it's literally only to beat Oops All spells if they have a Leyline of Sanctity. So I appreciate the idea behind that. I appreciate that we were able to register it and give it a shot. I think on the evidence of this, I'm running back to Nile Spellbomb as quickly as I can. Spellbomb is just the Jund card of choice, and honestly, I'm not even worried that much about the Oops matchup because we've got these trophies flying around, and if they're mulling aggressively toward Leyline of Sanctity, the Leylines dilute their combo potential a little bit. I think our matchup is okay. I think I'd rather just like play another Assassin's Trophy or something if we really want to do that, or maybe even work a card like Ancient Grudge into the deck could be kind of cool to attack their mana even more thoroughly by hitting the rocks and whatever. And also, Trophy itself can beat Leyline if we really need to unlock a Spellbomb that way. So that's just my thinking, but I appreciate the idea, and it is good to know that Soul Guide Lantern is a card that should be in the Jund toolbox. For graveyard decks that also pack Leyline of Sanctity, it is a good way to beat them if we don't want to play Leyline of the Void in our deck, I guess. So thank you so much, Alex. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, I think we affirmed a lot of the traditional strengths of Jund here, despite only going 3-2. Definitely was a pretty sweet one. Shout out again to Alex's friend Gabrielle, who is a new member of this BGX family playing the Rock. Love to see that too. And thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every Patreon supporter. I also appreciate each and every viewer. And you can leave your thoughts below on the Jund list that you are rocking in the current metagame. We still have a while to go until Kaldheim spoilers even begin, so there's a lot of time to really solidify our strategy here. But yeah, I think Alex's list is great. I would just play Spellbombs over Lanterns, but I really like the balance of the sideboard otherwise. I really like the balance of the main deck. Continue to have my faith in Kroxa rewarded every single time I play this deck, just about. And yeah, it definitely felt pretty good in most places here. So thanks again for watching. I hope to see you for the next video, and I will talk to you all soon.